Hey, welcome back to the stash. There was a time when Spider-Man comics felt like essential reading, when every issue carried weight, when Peter Parker's struggles weren't just plot devices but stories that mattered. His victories were hard fought, his failures devastating, but no matter how dark things got, you could always count on one thing: that Peter would learn, he would grow, and he would push forward. Always. But lately, it feels like that's all gone. Like the core of what made Spider-Man Spider-Man has been stripped away, leaving us with something hollow. A character who no longer learns, no longer grows, but rather just exists, wandering aimlessly from one event to the next, stuck in a cycle of regressions, bad decisions, and worst of all, apathy. The latest arc, 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, is just another symptom of this, another reminder that Peter Parker we once knew and loved is long gone. This should be a massive moment, a defining chapter, but instead it's nothing. This is a story, a horrible story that mistakes shock for substance, confusion for complexity, and worst of all, thinks that by killing Spider-Man over and over again is doing something meaningful. But it's not. There's nothing left to care about here. This is just another meaningless death in a run full of meaningless stories. So join us today as we go over The Amazing Spider-Man issue 68, The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man Part 8. But before we get into that though, I want to take a quick second to say that here at The Stash, we're trying to reach 8.5 thousand subscribers before the end of the month. I know it's a huge ask, but with your help, I know we can do it. So if you love Spider-Man or just comic content in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. But anyway, with all that being said, let's jump right back into the video. So our story begins right where we left off last time, with CYRA fearing what's just about to happen. Peter of course tries to brush it off again since he's still set on dooming the entire world, until CYRA picks him up and takes him to the streets of New York so he can see the horror unfold with his very own eyes. And when he notices Randy, Shay, Aunt May, and a random civilian dead on the side, Peter's face fills with anxiety. "This isn't how they're supposed to die," he exclaims, since he saw how they all passed away in the challenge. CYRA has to explain to this supposed genius that what he saw was merely a possibility. Now, reminder everyone, Peter is meant to be smart, and he seriously asks CYRA, what changed? And so, continuing her explanation, she tells Peter that what changed was him refusing to uphold his responsibility as Earth's champion. This all of a sudden causes Peter to pause as he realizes that this is all his fault, and finally snaps out of this massive pity party as he suits up once more as Spider-Man. His first order of business is to bring back the innocents who died by his inactivity. He hands Coulson all his remaining reeds to bring them back, meaning if and when he dies, there's no coming back for him. Peter doesn't care about that though. Right now his main priority is saving those people. And with that sacrifice, they're brought back to life. Oh, it's funny by the way how when Peter used the reeds, a magic plot point was how he got extremely jaded and tired from how unbelievably painful the rebirth process was, but for these guys, it felt like nothing at all. It's almost like this book was just a massive excuse to torture Peter. Anyway, Spider-Man joins in on the fight with the X-Men, but after some more useless page filler, Calyx has won. He has managed to infect the Earth with soul rot. CYRA panicked, she quickly stops time, placing her and Spider-Man in a place between their worlds. She tells Spider-Man all about soul rot and the blight, the thing Strange was terrified of. Spidey asks CYRA why she even cares about Earth, since she's meant to be on the other side. She replies by saying how she's curious of those on Earth and how she wants to understand us humans. I do feel like there's definitely a subplot growing here that might be explored, or either that, or just completely be forgotten about in the next month or so. They then decide to work together and rush back to the throne room of CYTTORAK, where they find all her brothers and sisters murdered, no doubt by the corrupted Calyx. Yet for some unknown reason, their father didn't intervene. It even looks like he hasn't moved an inch since we last saw him. And due to this, CYRA swears if her father will not fight, she will. And so she goes off to find her brother, while leaving Spider-Man to somehow rouse up her dad. As Spidey approaches, a giant portal erupts, with the blight itself coming through. It rocks Peter to his very core. The mere sight of it is horrifying. But then, without his spider sense going off, Calyx from behind grabs Peter's neck, and within an instant, he snaps it. And so our story ends with the Amazing Spider-Man dying yet again, only this time, he has no reeds left to save him. Spider-Man is dead. Again. And in the context of this story, he's dead for good. Obviously he'll come back. And I should care. I really should. But I don't, because none of this means anything. For 3 whole issues, we've watched Peter Parker, a man supposedly defined by his intelligence, his perseverance, his sheer unwillingness to give up, do absolutely nothing. Eat, drink coffee, cheat on his girlfriend, and now suddenly, after seeing a few people dead in front of him, he has this grand epiphany that maybe he should step in and do something? It's just so jarring. Like, how have we spent the last few issues in a row watching Peter be so out of character, so unbelievably depressed, and then instantly in this, he snaps out of it after seeing a few people dead, even though he spent the last few issues saying he just doesn't care about anyone. It makes all that brooding, all that time spent with him being an annoying, depressed loser somehow feel even more pointless than it already was. Immediately when reading this issue, I had to stop quickly of what I was doing to write down all my thoughts because I was in sheer disbelief over how quickly all of it was swept under the rug. Compare this to Ultimate Spider-Man, where all of that story is just beautifully laid out, beautifully constructed, and it results in this amazing climax in issue 14 where here it's the complete opposite. It's lazily thrown together, there's no proper foundation, and the end result is just a complete mess. And a boring mess at that as well. It's like, does no one seriously care anymore? Does no one want to craft something special for Amazing Spider-Man? Something that's true to the character? Something actually worth for us, the readers and fans who have stuck by this character for literal decades to buy with our hard-earned cash? Or is Marvel just content with ruining the character and his world issue by focusing on rage bait and variant covers instead? It's fucking pathetic. This isn't Peter Parker. In fact, we haven't seen Peter Parker, the real one, in nearly 20 fucking years. This, as I've said many times, is an imposter wearing his face, and somehow we're at the point where the new Ultimate Spider-Man, a literal alternative version, is somehow more 616 than this guy. That's how far we have fallen with this book. It is completely unrecognizable. You know how painful, how baffling I found it that in this book, one minute he's too apathetic to care about the end of the world, and then the next he suddenly realizes, oh wait, if the world ends, people that I love will die differently. Like, no fucking shit. You're telling me that Peter Parker, one of the smartest guys in the world, thought that all of these people would die the same way in his visions even after he said screw the world, which would mean the Earth would fall victim to the end times. What a fucking moron. It makes no sense. How on earth could he have thought that? That Aunt May would still pass away from a random illness while the Earth itself collapses? How have they made one of the smartest men in the Marvel Universe this unbelievably dense? And I get it, Peter in a way is out of his depth with all this magic nonsense, fine, but this is a man who has fought alongside Doctor Strange, who has battled demons, literal gods, and interdimensional nightmares on multiple occasions. At this point in his career, he should at least be able to adapt, at least slightly. Instead, he bumbles through this comic, always the last to react as if this is some all brand new revelation to him, but spoiler alert, it isn't. It's just bad writing. Marvel loves killing Spider-Man. They've done it so many times now in just this one horrible story I've lost count, but when you compare the difference between something like Kraven's Last Hunt where he basically dies and this one, it's that story had actual weight to it. It had stakes, purpose, whereas this just feels like a complete modern day Spider-Man misery epic. I know I made a video already saying Marvel finally kills Spider-Man, but we all know that he's revived in that same issue. Now obviously somehow he'll come back once more, but in the context of this story, they did it. Marvel actually killed Spider-Man. He has no reads left, since he gave them all away, and you're telling me that this is another time where Aunt May has died, but through stupid magic bullshit is brought back to life? This story isn't just god-awful, it's pointless. It doesn't say anything new about Peter Parker, it doesn't challenge him or break him down or force him to rise from the ashes like any great Spider-Man story should. It doesn't explore his resilience, his intelligence, his humanity. If it barely does, it's through the most shallow way possible. This book to me doesn't even attempt to justify its own existence as a big Spider-Man story arc that changes the character forever. It's just there. It's lifeless, hollow, and a shadow of something that could have been something big and could have been something that mattered, but just never actually got there. It drags us through the motions, pretending to be important, pretending to be about something, but when really, it's nothing more than just noise, than a filler to get to the next volume, so they can just sell more #1 issues, so they can get a big sales boost and then pretend like everything is fine, because that is what ASM is in the modern day. It's just a gimmick book. It's either reboots for issue 1s or variant covers or legacy issues with like, oh look at this one, issue 950 or 975 or 1000. They just try to get anything to get the sales to rise. It's the most shallow, hollow ways possible to get the numbers up. And that's what hurts the most, because this is Spider-Man now, a character so stripped of meaning that even his death doesn't even feel like a big moment, but rather just another gimmick, another entry in the long list of shocking Marvel events that will be undone in a matter of issues. Deaths used to mean something in Spider-Man comics, from Jean the Wolf to Gwen Stacy to Captain Stacy and so on. It used to feel real, but now it's just a speed bump on the road to the next half-baked storyline. Spider-Man is dead, but honestly, he's been dead for a while now. Not physically, not in the way that this story wants us to believe, but the ideal Spider-Man, the character that meant something to us, to everyone. The one that represented struggle, perseverance, intelligence, and responsibility. That Spider-Man is long gone. In his place we have this, a man who doesn't think, who doesn't fight for what's right until it's too late, who stumbles through a story that was never worth telling in the first place. This isn't just another bad issue that's a part of an even worse larger story, but rather a constant reminder of how far we've truly fallen. My god, if I had a fucking dollar every time Aunt May's brought back my comic bullshit. Spider-Man.